I should be able to do this. Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for clicking on the video as always. The main purpose of being out today is I want to show you quite an exciting piece of new kit actually. It's a new stove. I find it really interesting. I think the innovation's really fantastic. So I'm going to show you that. I'm going to cook up a bit of food. I was hoping to do a little bit of foraging for some early chanterelles, and I checked the usual spots in this woodland, and there's a few, but it's a bit early yet. I think it's been a bit dry as well, so maybe in a couple of weeks if we get a bit more moisture they might start popping up. I grabbed a couple, so it'll be enough for a taste at least. I'm going to make some sort of mushroom and sausage wraps, just really simple on this new stove. It's very warm, very muggy, and we're supposed to be getting quite heavy rain and thunderstorms in about, well, an hour or two actually. So I'm going to throw up just a simple ply point shelter with the tarp too, just in case I've got some cover, you know, if it does start raining. But I'm going to do that now, and then I'll show you this new stove. Right, that's the shelter set up. That's what I love about the ply point. It really does just take 5 minutes. So to the stove, and to really show you how sort of lightweight and compact it is, I'm gonna get it out of this little bag at the moment. So actually this is my whole cook kit. So this is a 750mm titanium pot, and then the stove is actually inside. So, and just before I get this open, so the total weight of this, so the stove, the cable, which I'll come to in a moment, this cup and this bag, it is a thin little bag, but it was 269 grams. That's it. So I'll get this out just now. So this is the titanium pot on the outside, just standard Tokes titanium pot, and this is the stove, and it really is that small. So it comes with this little pouch, and there we go. There is the LOFI Ultralight titanium biofuel stove. Just before I have a go at lighting the stove here, these stoves are designed and manufactured by Johnny LOFI. You might have seen Johnny on Instagram or YouTube. This is actually version 2 of the LOFI stove. I'd seen the first version doing the rounds on Instagram probably a couple of years ago now, I think, and I was quite jealous because it looked really cool, and I'm very grateful that Johnny sent me this updated version to try out, and it will be appearing on Kickstarter very soon. So thank you very much, Johnny. I'm really pleased and excited for this. I really am. But anyway, check out the links in the description after this video, obviously, and let's have a go at lighting this stove. It's a biofuel stove. So you can put twigs that you find on the ground, pine cones, it's quite good with like wood pellets. Johnny's actually got some interesting videos on his YouTube channel where he's actually used sheep poo, I think potato chips as well, and he's even boiled up some noodles, burning other noodles. So anything that will burn like that can be used with this stove. So you have the main stove, you have this ember guard, and the most interesting thing is you have this power cable. This stove, you have to have a power source. So it has a fan at the bottom, and that's kind of critical to the stove. So today I'm going to use this tiny little Nightcore battery pack. But the nice thing about this stove is you can just plug it into your phone. And of course, everyone's got their phone on them these days, so a power source for this stove is just not going to be an issue. And the battery drain on it is so minimal, you could run this thing for hours and hours. I'm talking like 150 hours plus with a full 10,000 milliamp battery. On the cable, I'll bring it a bit closer, there's an adjuster, so you can actually adjust the power of the fan, which obviously adjusts how powerful the stove is. I'm going to boil up some water now in this pot, and I'm actually just going to use some pine cones that I've found on the ground and see how efficient that is in this stove. It's recommended that you put the fan on as soon as you start the stove, because the fan keeps pushing the heat upwards and it makes sure that the electronics underneath are kept cool enough and there's no damage. The electronics are actually waterproofed as well, and this second version of the stove has more thermal protection than the first one as well. So I think it can tolerate up to 250 degrees Celsius. All right, so I've just made a few basic shavings here that I'm going to put in just to make it a bit easier to light. I'll plug the fan in. Make sure the cable's out the way. Hopefully the mic's picking that up. Hopefully you can hear that. Right, I'll turn the fan back up. Right, that's the fan on full now. Right, you can really hear it's getting going now. So it's actually a twin wall stove as well, and with that and the fan, it just makes it incredibly efficient. I mean, you wouldn't be able to light a fire that's giving off this heat with just a handful of damp pine cones normally. So, and like I say, I just picked them up off the ground, so that's really good. Then I put this ember guard on, and I will boil up some water here and see how long that takes. So this thing is going like an absolute rocket now, and just before I put the pot on, I'll show you that by adjusting this, so you can see the intensity. I don't know if you can hear it as well, it goes right down. So that's the fan on the lowest, and then I'll put it back up. So essentially it's almost like having a gas stove that you can adjust. Yeah, this is a 750ml pot which I've filled. So I'll put it on. I'm just going to put a couple of more pine cones in there. Just like that. Wow. That's incredible. And we'll see how that gets on. There we go. That's 6 minutes and 30 seconds almost exactly. And we are boiling using damp pine cones off the ground. I probably used maybe 15 to 20 pine cones for that. And it's boiling away nice. That's a full almost 750 millilitres of water. So that's fantastic. I should be able to do this. The bottom of the stove, I mean, it's slightly warm, and I really mean slightly, but I can pick that up no problem without, you know, burning my fingers. And essentially that means that you can have this stove going on the ground, and even if it's, you know, really dry, it's not going to be an issue. You're not going to scorch the ground, and it really is, you know, leave no trace. I mean, the heat coming off that from up above, but that fan, like I say, is just pushing all the heat upwards, which also protects the electronics, but yeah, protects the ground too. So I'll put that down carefully now. It's also recommended that you leave the fan on. You don't need to leave it on full power, but leave it on until the fire dies out, again just to protect the electronics, but also for efficiency, because when this finishes, and I'll show you how much ash is left, it's very, very minimal. That's been a couple minutes now. I'm going to turn this fan off. I mean, it's already, you know, cold enough to touch, really cold actually. There's no heat to it at all. I can take the ember guard out, and yeah, I mean, there's absolutely hardly anything, maybe not even a teaspoon or tablespoon of ash, just nothing at all. So very, very efficient. The actual power source that I'm using is about 90 grams. So I think I said the pot and the stove together was 270. So this is 90 as well. So what's that? 360. So 360 grams for basically your power source, which will last you honestly hours and hours and hours. You can pick up fuel off the ground. I mean, the stove on its own it weighs less than 100 gram gas canister, so the smallest gas canister. But of course, you don't have to keep buying fuel for this. You know, you can just burn twigs and things. So it's so much better for me. I think it's probably close to one of the just ultimate lightweight camping stoves, to be honest. So I normally just tear these up roughly, so that'll be fine. Like that, a little bit of oil. And I also brought some mushrooms from home, just in case I didn't find any chanterelles, so I'll chop these up as well. Bit of brown sauce with me. That's good. Alright guys, I think that's it for this video. It was just a quick one to show you this stove. Again, if you want to find out more information about the stove, it's coming to Kickstarter soon. I'll leave the link to the website and to Johnny's Instagram, so if you check that out, I'd appreciate that. But if you want to stick around for Forest Thoughts, please do. It's a very quick one. I hadn't planned anything, but it was just something that popped into my head just now. But if not, I will see you on the next one. Hi folks, thanks for sticking around for Forest Thoughts. As I just said, this is very much an off-the-cuff one, and it was just something that popped into my head whilst I was making coffee there. And really what it is like recently I've seen quite a lot of discussion online and in, you know, other videos about sort of non-native and native species, and it often gets very simplified, and like with all this kind of stuff, there's a bit of nuance to it. And I guess the best way to think about it is when it comes to invasives, so all invasives are non-native, but not all non-natives are invasive. And that really comes down to the species themselves and where they're growing and how they're growing and sort of where they're originally from as well. So a good example is, so our woodlands in the Highlands they're quite open. A lot of the species are like light demanding, they're pioneer species. It's early succession woodland really. And as you go further south, I've talked about this before, the woodlands have had more chance to develop. So there may be beech and oak woodlands, with deeper soils, better soils, this kind of thing. So the forests in the Highlands are quite recent in sort of geological terms. So if you're on the continent, you might get a species like European larch, which is also a light demander, but in certain areas it has evolved with the same species that are here. So if you bring European larch into the mix here, it's not really going to have that much of a negative impact. It'll have some, obviously, not a huge sort of detrimental effect on the woodland. And a lot of the species here have evolved alongside the species on the continent, so they can adapt to them quite well. So yeah, the two easy ones are, so European larch, species like capercaillie will get on really well in a larch, in a stand of larch woodland, because they do so on the continent. That's what they've evolved to live with. It's just that they happen to be missing here because basically we ran out of time. They weren't able to cross the land bridge in time. And it's the same with Norway spruce. And Norway spruce sometimes gets called an honorary native. And again, species like red squirrel do really well in Norway spruce woodlands. And although the Norway spruce is a bit more shade tolerant, it's not such a light demander as the pine, the birch, the aspen, but it fills sort of little niches that those species wouldn't. So the Norway spruce likes soil that's a little bit more damp and a little bit more fertile. So you tend, like if you go to Norway, for example, you'll get the Scots pine on the drier, more acidic, thinner soils, and you'll get the Norway spruce in the sort of gullies and sort of moist, deeper, slightly better soil. So they've evolved together. So if you bring that Norway spruce into the mix here, again, it doesn't really have that detrimental impact. And those two wouldn't be classed as invasives. And when we say invasive, what we're really saying is almost how aggressive a species is. Are they going to come in, grow fast, just take over the place, almost take control? And that is the case with some of our actual invasives. And Sitka spruce would be one of them. So that's a spruce from northwestern America. Something like a western hemlock as well. These species they're very shade tolerant and they grow very fast. Other species don't shade them out. That doesn't hold them back. And the big difference with them as well is they have evolved in completely different habitats to the species we have here. And they're very well adapted to outcompete the species here. So when you bring them in, they can be very invasive because there's nothing to hold them back. They are they're always going to be the winners. The Sitka spruce will grow up and it'll shade out the Scots pine, and Sitka spruce wins. And again, another one, not so much a tree species, but a shrub species that is a huge problem in the UK is Rhododendron ponticum. And rhododendron's used to growing in really harsh conditions in like the Himalaya. So you bring it over here and it's easy peasy for rhododendron, and it's just going to outcompete anything. It's such a tough species. there's no stopping it really, and it has the ability to acidify the soil and kind of kill off other species around it. It's very shade tolerant, so it just smothers things, and there's no stopping it. So the Sitka spruce, the western hemlock, the rhododendrons, these are true sort of invasive non-natives, and the big reason for that is they've just evolved in completely different areas of the world, and when you bring them here, they're just too strong at out-competing the species we have here. And also, just a final point is that it's situational as well. So if you get one of our old Caledonian pinewood remnants, we're really trying to achieve as close to sort of ecological, I don't know if perfection's the right word to use because nothing is ever really perfect, but as close to what it would naturally be as possible. So any non-native species in the mix, you want to get rid of it because these ancient remnants are very sensitive and we don't have much left. So even the larch and the Norway spruce, although they might not have that much of an impact, they wouldn't naturally sort of be here, and because the habitat's so sensitive, you would want to remove them. Whereas if you've got quite a standard mixed sort of commercial forest, that you're managing, you're actively managing for timber and for other resources, then a mix of Norway spruce, Scots pine, larch works very well, and it adds diversity in terms of species, but also in terms of products and that kind of thing. And and if it's managed well, it can be really beneficial to wildlife because it still has a lot of the niches that the wildlife need, even though it's not strictly the natural sort of makeup of the woodland if we hadn't had any sort of impact on it. And take something like sycamore. Sycamore is actually a non-native to the UK, but you would never call it an invasive or look at it as if it was a problem. I mean, sycamore itself is it's a really nice tree. It's got lots of ecological benefits, provides a lot of niches for species in this country, but it wouldn't have naturally been here, and things wouldn't have naturally evolved with it. But it's fine to have it here. Beech is another one that would be classed as non-native to the Highlands, but not necessarily to the rest of the UK. And beech is a great tree too, but beech can be quite shade tolerant, so it tends to have the characteristics that the real non-natives like Sitka spruce and things have when it comes to bringing it into sort of our northern woodland, that it can regenerate very quickly and sort of outcompete and smother the species that are here, so the pine, the birch, the aspen. So that's it really. That's all I wanted to say. It's just in the native non-native debate, there's a little bit of a nuance to it. It's not always just clear cut, get everything out. It really just depends on the context, where you are in the country. And in terms of non-natives, I mean, in the UK, the cat's out of the bag. We're never going to get rid of everything. So, we need to be a bit sensible with it. Where it makes sense to remove them, then absolutely. But, sometimes it makes sense to keep these things as well. Anyway, I will leave it there. Thanks for listening as always, and hopefully I will see you on the next one.